we chose the Bulgarian method, and we would be remiss without talking about this type of periodization without mentioning Ivan Abajiv, who is the national strength coach of Bulgaria. He developed the system to compete with Russian Olympic weightlifters who were the top competition at the time. Bulgaria was under the USSR at the time, and Abajiv believed that his program was tougher than the existing Russian program. He believed that the training method, that training heavy was the most effective method in developing weightlifting performance. So he was proud of the physical strength that was needed, physical power that was needed in his program, but also the mental grit that was needed. And as head coach, he was the head coach of the Bulgarian Weightlifting Federation from 1968 to 1989, as well as 1997 to 2000. And during this time, he produced 12 Olympic champions, 57 world champions, and 64 European champions. So in this picture, we can see Abajiv coaching one of his athletes. As you can see, it's very closely monitored. He personally monitored all of their high-intensity lifts. And the top national team consisted of 20 athletes. These athletes began in sports schools, and selection would begin at 12 years old. From there, they would go to the lower national junior team. They could advance to the upper national junior team, and then from there to the senior national team, and then the top goal would be to compete at the national level. So the national team was under the close supervision and eye of Abajiv. So history continued. This program was a shoot-off of the USSR training regiment. Its first major success came during the 1917 Munich Olympics when Bulgaria brought home the gold. The level of weightlifting were clear and distinct within Bulgaria, with an opportunity to climb the ladder based on performance, the ladder being from before the different schools and training levels. And several years after the 1972 Munich Olympics, the Bulgarian team saw success in Manila, which really solidified Abajiv's methodology. And the early success can also be contributed to the funding from the Bulgarian government, who had on their top national team of 20 people, they would be salaried athletes, so they could focus all their time on developing their weightlifting skill, as well as Bulgarian children. They had a good GPP from an early age because of the physical education provided to them.
So a general overview of the Bulgarian method is it is a highly specialized training focused on sports specificity for high-level Olympic weightlifting athletes. So the primary exercises for their training was the snatch and the clean and jerk. They focused at 85% 1 RM and above, and their sets would be between 3 and 6, and their reps would be between 1 and 2. But they were always going for higher numbers, and they were only in the gym to lift heavy. They did variations to include those two main lifts, which were the hang cleans, snatch pull, and the muscle snatch. And the reason why Ivan put these exercises in the workouts was because it assisted them in their competition lifts. So they were training what they were actually doing in competition. And it was also very personalized. It was one-on-one training, and he was there to monitor all of their lifts. He was able to see where they were having any issues in their technique, how hard they were trying, and there was no cycling in this weightlifting training methodology. So he didn't build up with muscular endurance. The athletes that went in there had to already be strong, and they had to be taking it seriously due to the not so much the duration of their workouts, but how often they were working out. They were training 2 to 6 times a day. So like I said before, he kept his workouts to 45 minutes because that's how long the human male is able to maintain testosterone secretion levels. So their testosterone level is said to be higher at this point. And so after this, they take a rest of at least 30 minutes, and during that 30 minutes rest, he lets them sit back and relax, recline, listen to pop music, and sleep, do whatever they need to do to rest. Underlying the goal of the Bulgarian method It's designed to generate highest peak power. So he was going for power, only power, for competition. He believed that consistently lifting near maximum weight will prime the body to lift the heaviest possible weight come competition. So he didn't want to take his athletes up and then peak on the competition day. He wanted them to already stay peaked.
So to touch on what happens in a single lift session with Ivan Abajev back in the early 70s when he first developed the Bulgarian style method, he had a very unique way of approaching weightlifting compared to others, especially the Russians of the USSR. He believed, as we kept with the same kind of tempo here, high intensity, low reps. And so that's exactly what happened during the week of training for his athletes. So typical Monday would include snatching right off the bat. Snatching would start off with maybe a set of below 80% just to get the body primed, but not too many reps, maybe like 1, 2, maximal 3. Then we would go right into the maximal percentages of their overall max. And so as we can tell, that's going to be really, really taxing on the body. And they would do that for only 30 to 40 minutes only. And it was just straight snatching for 30 to 40 minutes, working on technique, working on delivery, working on the weights, just getting used to lifting heavy come competition day. For the next 30 minutes after the snatch session would be a rest. They would rest for 30 minutes to 40 minutes, eating lunch, napping, or listening to music just to relax them, get their body in a nice, relaxed, calm state. And then after that rest of 30 minutes, they would go and hit clean and jerks for the next session. That would be around lunchtime. So same kind of deal. They would start off maybe just a hair below 80% just to get the body ready to clean and jerk. And then they would go full go with 80, 85, 90, even close to 100 of their overall max. So as we can tell, this is going to be really high intensity days. And so these athletes are really tired. That's why there's so many different rest intervals between each lift session. After the clean and jerk session of the day, they would go into another rest period for 30 to 40 minutes, eating, sleeping, resting, whatever the athletes wanted to do. After that, they would kind of go into the second half of the workout for the day. They would go into their third workout, which was going to be a combination of just snatching and maybe a little bit of back squat, depending on Ivan Abajev. He just keep the body fresh, keep the body primed with full body compound movements like squats. So during the third session, they would do snatch again. They would do a little bit of snatch, kind of retouching from the morning just to get the body used to being snatched all day. And then after the 30 minutes of snatching, they would go to another break for 30 to 40 minutes, and right around dinner time, around 5 or 6 o'clock, they would go back into the gym and they would do a clean and jerk again. So there's 4 total sessions on a Monday, and 2 of the sessions were snatch focused, and the other 2 were clean and jerk focused. Moving on to Tuesday, they would do kind of a back off day. They would do some back squats, what they normally don't do during the day, or at least on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, the full week. So they would do a little bit back squatting just to kind of get the body ready again. Then they would go into like power snatches. So maybe not doing a full snatch, but just getting a power snatch. So kind of having a little variety in there to get the body kind of keep it guessing, seeing, what it can do during the day. So after the snatch session, they would go on again, same as Monday. They would take another 30-minute break, go back into the second session during lunchtime, and continue doing clean and jerks, but more emphasis on the power cleans and power jerks. So Tuesdays and Thursdays were kind of the same model as this. They would kind of follow a power progression, not progression, but just power movements. And they would maybe supplement a little back squatting in there. Same thing with the later afternoon sessions and the evening sessions. The workout number 3 and 4 would be clean and jerk focused. So as we can see, kind of a rhythm here, we're kind of getting a lot of focus on single lifts during each session, and they're only going to be about maybe 2 or 3 different kind of lifts. So we're really focusing our adaptations on 3 different things here. Moving into Wednesday, very similar style as Monday. Going to be snatch in the mornings, clean and jerks by lunchtime, snatch again at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then right around the evening time to do clean and jerk again. But there wouldn't be any back squats on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So that's the difference between Tuesdays and Thursdays. They would only do back squats and other accessory compound movements on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as well as the weekends. So flash forwarding to the weekends, as I said before, Saturdays are going to be kind of an off day. But even an off day, these guys were still working in the gym, so they were still in the gym early in the morning and kind of working on other areas of their body, maybe like flexibility or maybe just technique, whatever the case may be, at the discretion of Ivan Abadjab, because he was the total dictator of this workout program. Sundays was usually kind of a more free day for the athletes. They were able to go in the gym and kind of work out whatever they wanted to do, rest, maybe stretch, kind of do, some little things that would help them get back and ready for Monday. But there would be absolutely no kind of endurance, there'd be no kind of aerobic, no high intensity interval training. It was strictly just weightlifting from start to finish. So with the nature of the Bulgarian method being high intensity, it's a very taxing workout. A lot of the athletes that go and try to do a periodized style of a Bulgarian method, usually are going to encounter very high levels of intensity, very low repetitions, and definitely an increased rest time, simply because of the pure amount of weight they're moving per rep. So with Ivan Abadjab's method, he really focuses on high weight, low reps, day in and day out, all throughout the year leading up to competition. So as we talk about adaptations in our class, when we think about the Bulgarian method, we also used to think about strength adaptations right off the bat. And to combat the fatigue that is endured during these kind of workouts, there's a couple different tips that we're going to talk about here. So with the expectation of mental toughness, that should be the clear pointer right there. Mental toughness. This is going to be the bread and butter of what's going to be required for someone to complete a workout program with the Bulgarian style, because the pure amount of intensity. There's going to be times where people are going to fail at lifts, they're going to keep trying their 85, 90%, and they're going to keep failing, and that's exactly what Ivan wants. Ivan, he never harped on his athletes for missing a lift or failing a lift, but he harped on them if they didn't want to go hard, if they didn't want to go heavy at all times. And that was the nature of this program. And that's kind of the reason why Ivan saw so much success in the Olympics with his athletes, because he figured out that the body is going to adapt to the specific stress stimulus you put on it. And so by lifting 5 or 6 days a week at near maximal effort, your body is going to rapidly adapt to that kind of weight. And so as it makes sense, come game time or competition time, when those athletes step on the stage to lift those weights, they're already primed and ready to go to be able to handle the load that they requested for the competition. And most of the time, they took home gold. So Ivan, to help stymie the effects of fatigue, both physically and mentally, he talked about different ways his athletes could, focus and how to recover. So in between the 30-minute sessions of recovery and between workouts, he would tell them, go lay down, go on a couch, listen to music, just unwind and totally just de-stress. Because that's going to take a lot of attention. A lot of the tension in your body is going to help you rest, recover, and get you primed for another workout 30 minutes later. And by having these short intervals of rest and workout times, it's keeping enough time in between workouts and rest time for your body to, quickly recover and then go hard again. Instead of just like having, lift one day for an hour and then going back the next day and lifting maybe heavy again. He's having 4 workouts, heavy, and obviously that takes a toll mentally and physically. So he really emphasized, resting, recovery, and during the workouts, Ivan was really a genius when it came to psychology. He'd always talk about, just breathing techniques and not being afraid of the weight. A lot of the athletes, may have been, kind of doubting themselves whether or not they could do the 90%. Ivan was a master of psychological manipulation. He was able to talk his athletes into continuing the workouts as he prescribed to them. The major benefits of the Bulgarian style of periodization training is going to be sport-specific adaptations, as well as increases in mental toughness. So keeping with the same tone of the presentation here, the Bulgarian style is very, very intense. It prescribes high weight, low reps. So athletes who come in who have never trained like this before are going to be shocked, just simply because of the amount of load they're having to lift all through the day, especially with the strict regimen that Ivan had them on, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, lifting every day to your, most intense weight. It takes a lot out of you. It takes a special kind of person to be able to finish, those multiple kind of workouts every day. And that's what we're talking about, the mental toughness aspect here. Training day in and day out with Ivan, he expected you to come in here, follow his method of lifting 85 to 90% of your max every day. And if you didn't want that, he kicked you out. He said, don't waste my time here. And that's kind of like a sink or swim method, where it's like, you come in here, you want to train with Ivan, you better come prepared. You better come, ready to get to the workout, challenge yourself, and get it done. The next major benefits of this style of periodization training, on top of, gaining more mental toughness to take on challenges, is the sport specificity part of this training style. As the body, as we're learning in 450, the body is very adaptive to the stimulus you put onto it. So lifting heavy 6 days a week, all the time, almost near maximally, you're going to have a crazy amount of adaptation to lift heavy weights. It's going to prime your body to be able to lift heavy almost every day. And that's exactly what Ivan wanted to do. He wanted to lift heavy every single day leading up to a competition during the year. So, no matter what was going on, it was always heavy, it was always, fast, and it was always low reps. That was the motto, that was the mantra, that's what he wanted to do with his athletes.
So now we'll be talking about the special problems with the Bulgarian method. One of the biggest issues is that it's only applicable to highly trained male athletes. One of the reasons why this is an issue is because at the time, females were restricted from competing in Olympic weightlifting. So this type of program design was tailored to the male physiology and not the female physiology. Another issue with that is that if you were a novice or intermediate athlete, you wouldn't benefit from this program because you would have to have already known the technique and learned it instead of trying to learn the technique while you're doing this program. Another issue is that you're training to near maximal and maximal loads, so that leads to a high probability of overuse injuries. Overuse injuries can also be a cause of the little to no variation within this program. And also that could lead to boredom in the athlete. Another issue is that you need to have an attentive coach at all times, being one-on-one with each athlete. So that doesn't give the coach liberty to focus on multiple athletes at once, because you would have to just pay attention to one, because you couldn't really trust that the athlete would be able to problem solve or figure out what they did wrong within a lift, since you're kind of eliminating that from them. Another issue is that it's not optimal for people who are not professional weightlifters. So let's say you wanted to have a career while you were weightlifting, or you had to work. This wouldn't be beneficial because at the time there had to be 2 to 3 sessions a day, and the sessions were long. So it just wouldn't be optimal for you, especially now in today's climate when everyone has to work. It just wouldn't be beneficial. Another issue is that this method does not apply to other sports. So if you're a powerlifter or a bodybuilder, or if you're any other kind of sport, it wouldn't be beneficial for you because this is sport specific as possible. It's only applicable to weightlifting, and if you're a powerlifter or a bodybuilder, it doesn't make sense since you're training to maximal, you're training for near maximal loads and with a high intensity, so it's tailored to power training. All right, so now we'll be talking about the articles. When looking for peer-reviewed research articles, we only came across these 3. The first one being by Storey et al. They kind of just describe the unique aspects of competitive weightlifting. They go into some different types of training styles, one being the Bulgarian method, but they don't go into like great detail. They just talk about how many sets of reps are done within each session, how many sessions a day there are. Then they go into discussing how there's little to no variation, as well as that there needs to be more research done to see if it's actually beneficial for women or novice, or to see how injury prone this type of method can be on an athlete. In the next one, he goes over a Bulgarian single week training cycle. So he talks about what athletes did throughout the week, each session, and how many sets and reps they were doing in each session, and how they were doing mini competitions within each week